Ever feel like you're drowning in financial news? Articles, tweets, reports. It's like a fire hose, right?
It really is. And it's not just the volume, it's the speed.
Right. Like, how are you supposed
Yeah.
to keep up? That's what we're diving into today, actually. Financial sentiment analysis. How computers are learning to, well, read the emotions behind the headlines.
It's about finding signals in the noise.
Exactly. And sometimes those signals are worth a fortune, right?
Huge fortunes.
Yeah.
In finance, speed is everything. The name of the game is information asymmetry.
Okay, break that down for me. Information asymmetry. Sounds like a mouthful.
Think of it like a poker game. If you could see everyone else's cards,
You
you'd
know.
clean up.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Same thing in the market. Those who can quickly understand the real implications of the news, especially the sentiment, they're the ones holding the winning hand.
So how do we level the playing field? Well, that's where FinBERT comes in, which, by the way, is our main topic for this whole deep dive.
And just to be clear, when we say FinBERT, we're talking about a really powerful AI model.
Right, it's not just some buzzword. This thing has been trained on an unbelievable amount of financial data, like millions upon millions of words.
It's basically read every financial news article ever written. Well, maybe not every single one.
But you get the idea.
The key here is this. Unlike older methods, it doesn't just look for simple keywords. It understands context, the nuances of financial language.
So we're not talking about your dad's sentiment dictionary here. This is next level stuff.
Exactly. Those old methods, they rely on spotting positive or negative words. But finance, it's full of jargon, double meanings, sarcasm even, things those older methods completely miss.
So how does FinBERT handle all that?
Well, first, it develops a really broad understanding of language itself. And they do this by training it on these huge, massive data sets, like Wikipedia, for example.
So it's like FinBERT went to school.
Yeah, in a way. But then it gets its specialized degree. It trains on an absolutely massive archive of financial news. It learns the lingo, all the weird specific patterns of the financial world.
It's like FinBERT went from reading, like, C-Spot Run to deciphering Warren Buffett's annual letters.
And it does it fast.
But how does this actually work in the real world? I mean, does it work?
It does work. Really well, actually. The research we're looking at, they put FinBERT through its paces.
Yeah.
And it blew other models out of the water.
And like, how much better are we talking here?
Significantly. On one data set, it was the Financial Phrase Bank, I think. Yeah, accuracy jumped by 15%.
So 15%. That's a lot.
It's huge. Especially when you consider even a small edge can make a huge difference, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially if you're, putting actual money on the line.
Exactly. And what I find really interesting is it achieves these gains, but it needs less training data than the older methods.
So it's not just smarter, it's more efficient too. Okay, I'm sold. But what does this actually look like in action? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a headline like, Company X announces record profits, sending shockwaves through the industry.
Okay, yeah. Classic good news, right?
Yeah, right. But a traditional sentiment analysis tool, they might get tripped up by the word shockwaves, you see.
Ah, because it sounds negative taken on its own.
Exactly. But FinBERT, it understands the whole context. It picks up on the positive sentiment, even the implied positive sentiment.
So it understands that shockwaves in this context means something good.
Right. It's like it's reading between the lines, getting the deeper meaning.
That's wild. Okay, so what about something a little more ambiguous? What if there are like mixed signals?
Okay, how about this? Despite facing regulatory hurdles, the CEO remained cautiously optimistic.
Okay, so you've got positive, negative. It's kind of hard to say. What does FinBERT do with that?
It navigates it.
Yeah.
Picks up on the CEO's optimism, labels the sentiment as more positive than negative.
Wow. Even humans struggle with that sometimes, right?
All the time.
But does FinBERT ever get it wrong?
Of course. It's not perfect. The thesis actually gave an example. The demand for coated magazine printing paper will continue to be weak.
Well, that's not good, right? For a paper company, at least. But I can also see how that would confuse an AI.
Exactly. This is a great example, actually. It highlights this key difference between stating a fact and expressing an opinion, right? The sentence describes a negative situation, a fact, but it doesn't say if it's good or bad for the company. Maybe they've diversified, right? Maybe this is expected. FinBERT doesn't have the real-world knowledge to make that kind of judgment.
So it's more like it's giving us a tool. It's not replacing human judgment.
Right. It's helping us make sense of all this data, this constant flood of information.
And that leads to a really interesting question. What if we could scale this up?
You mean, what if FinBERT could analyze, like, entire news cycles?
Yeah.
earnings calls,
Yeah.
social media.
Instant. Now that would be a game changer.
Exactly. We could track market sentiment in real time, understand how news impacts specific sectors.
It'd be like, I don't know, having a god's eye view of the whole financial system, right? Seeing everything as it happens.
That's the potential. Think about it. We could track how news impacts, like specific sectors, maybe even anticipate market swings. Though that's getting a bit,
Ahead of ourselves.
yeah.
Okay, but still.
Ah,
There are other applications too, right? I mean, beyond just trading, market analysis, all that.
tons. Risk assessment. Imagine if you could use this to assess loans, for example,
Oh, interesting.
or identifying new trends before they even hit the mainstream, maybe even gauging public reaction to product launches, that kind of thing.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. But I gotta say, you sound a little hesitant. What are the limitations here? Because FinBERT's not a crystal ball, right? It can't predict the future.
Exactly. And that's important to remember. FinBERT, at its core, it's a product of its training data, right?
Right.
It's analyzed a massive amount of information, sure, but it's still just a snapshot of the financial world as it was. It doesn't have insider information, can't predict black swan events.
Those out-of-nowhere events that nobody sees coming.
Exactly.
So it's a tool, a powerful tool, but not a foolproof one.
Right. And that's why it's so important that we use it responsibly, ethically,
Yeah.
We can't just take it for granted, understand its limitations.
Well, it feels like we're at the very beginning of something huge, a financial revolution almost.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
And like any revolution, there's going to be some uncertainty.
Definitely. But that's what makes it so fascinating to study. We're learning about what FinBERT can do, but at the same time, we have to think about, the bigger picture. What does AI in finance really mean for all of us?
It's a lot to take in. Really fascinating stuff, though. We went from deciphering financial sentiment to reimagining the whole financial system. And I think that's my takeaway for everyone listening. This is just the beginning, right? This technology, it's going to impact all of us in ways we probably can't even imagine yet. So what do you think? What possibilities and concerns come to mind for you? Let us know.